nervous?
No.
Where's your answer?
Dennis Beckham, let the ball on! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Oh! Oh, no! Oh, yes! He missed it!
Welcome to the Suffering from Joy podcast. My name is Devin. I'm a little fucking tired, guys. Stayed up all last night to watch Austin FC crumble in the last minute and lose a game in Portland to a team we probably should have beaten and a coach I despise with every fiber of my being. So we'll get into it. Joining me today, Scott, how you feeling?
I'm feeling very tired after staying up last night to to watch that and then see all of the crazy reactions from Austin FC fans and then wake up this morning. But it is nice and crisp and cool and kind of a great day.
The reactions were certainly something. Also with us today, Brad Tillery. Brad, how you feeling?
Feeling fine. So it's pretty normal for me to stay up midnight, 12:30, and then wake up at 7:30, 7:45 for work. So just a normal night for me in that respect, because we are recording at 8:30 in the morning here on Sunday. The game last night was what it was. I'm with y'all. I've got a serious annoyance with some of our fan base this morning. But otherwise, all good.
I'm going to silver lining it up front, and then we can tear into people. People being this unhinged and upset is at least a good thing that people care, and it's not just this Josh Wolfie malaise anymore.
Sure, but there's a point where you gotta remember what this league is. And yes, we lost last night. Yes, it was frustrating. I get it. We didn't score. We only had one goal, and it was off Bukari's face in 2 games. Okay, great. If you're not looking at the overall composition of how the team is playing, because we said last week, what did we want to see in this game more than anything? Were they going to go into Portland and compete? Were they going to try to play their style of game? And the answer to that was an unequivocal yes to me. We didn't sit back. We didn't try to just counter. We actually went in and tried to play the way we wanted to play. Just didn't get a goal last night. We had a couple of great opportunities, especially, that Vasquez free kick and the Savovic saved late in the game. Those are 2 really nice chances. We outshot Portland. Overall, I thought we played fine. Just didn't get a finishing product, but the thing I keep coming back to, y'all, is it's game 2. You can't be going this nuts over the team in game 2 when you lose a game. This is MLS. Do y'all remember what happened on April 27th, 2024? Do you guys happen to remember that match for Austin FC?
No, should I?
Was that home against Galaxy?
Yes, Austin FC played its best match of the year on April 27th, 2024 last year against the LA Galaxy. Can either of you remind me how those 2 teams finished the 2024 season?
Well, it seems like you really want to tell us.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Austin FC missed the playoff and Galaxy won the whole fucking thing. So maybe, just maybe, we give a team that has 2 new designated players, all 3 of which have only played 15 minutes of live game action on the field together, a whole lot of new midfielders, and a new coaching staff, a little bit of time to gel before we freak the fuck out. If this is July and we're playing like this consistently and not just a one-off, I will give it to you. We will revisit this conversation. But it's March the 2nd as we sit here and talk about it right now. We have played 2 matches. This team, for the most part, has still not played together a whole lot. We forget that Uzuni's only been in the States for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And he couldn't even do anything for the first few days while they were fixing some stuff up. So take a deep breath. Go enjoy a beautiful Sunday here in Central Texas. It'll be fine. We play at home next week. This is MLS. You don't have to be perfect in the opening parts of the season. I know a ton of people still, for whatever reason, even though we're in year 5, have Euro brain where you have to live or die with every match because the table only works where you don't get into playoffs. But that's not the case here. Chill. It's fine. Deep breaths.
Counterpoint. I'm going to sacrifice all my children to Moloch, shave my head, and move to an underground bunker. So, fans, you can kind of, split the difference between those 2 if you want to, but
look, if Moloch's actually going to follow through on that, that's not a terrible deal.
Yeah.
Listen,
I mean, that's always kind of the question when making a deal with a demigod.
it,
No, like, here's the thing, like, this is MLS. And I
yes,
think that people forget that, like, I looked this up the other day, but, like, it's hard to win on the road in MLS. Like, even the best teams don't win on the road that much. And yeah, we don't think Portland's good, but you know what Portland did really well last night? They played really organized and really compact in a way that made it to where like we couldn't get the ball to Vasquez because Vasquez had four people around him at all times. Like this was their strategy, this was their game plan, and Austin's problem was that they didn't have enough movement and interaction around him to move those defenders, and like that's just a thing that like this team has to work on. Like it's game two, and I saw somebody I saw somebody last night was like, "Oh, this looks like a mid-table team," and I'm like, "Do you have any idea how much of an improvement that would be?" Like mid-table would be like is like five spots above. Like mid-table would to me would count anything between like 4 and like 8, which is a solid playoff team here. And so like this idea that like, oh no, we lost to Portland and Portland's bad. Like one, like I don't think Portland's as bad as people are going to make them out to be. I think they got somebody sent off last week and then everything cascaded. But like it's tough to win on the road in MLS. It just is. Like if you get like 2 points for every home game and 1 point on every road game, you end up with 51 points on the season, and that's a
Seattle
solid playoff team.
Seattle went and got punked at RSL yesterday. Like, and we think
Yeah,
Seattle's going to be one of the best teams in the league over the course of the season. Like this shit is going to happen sometimes. And it was 0-0 in the 89th minute last night. It's kind of a weird ass goal that cost a weird foul and a weird goal sequence of events that cost us a result last night.
yeah. The other like really bad take I wanted to call out was somebody who I in the media who I normally really respect was like, well, San Diego looked really cohesive last week and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, they played it in shambles Galaxy team. They had everybody in for all of preseason. And the reason they looked good was because they got up a goal because Galaxy passed it to their best player in the box.
Yeah.
in
How,
in Galaxy's own box. Like Galaxy just gave them a goal, and so when you're playing up one the whole game, yeah, you're going to look really good. And then you look at what they did last night. They played St. Louis, who we think are going to be better, but we don't really know. And they had 67% possession and got one shot on goal. And oh, by the way, their best player went out injured. Like this is a thing that happens in MLS. Like all the teams are intentionally kind of even, and it really just comes down to like people talk about like basketball being like a make or miss sport. Like MLS is a make or miss league. Like everything looks good when you're scoring. Everything looks good when you force a couple errors. If that Danny shot in the first half goes in, we're up 1-0. Portland panics, and we probably go off to win a couple by another goal or two. But guess what? That didn't happen. Like this is a soccer thing. Like just we are not Madrid. We're not Barcelona. We're not in a league where the best teams win because the best teams have more resources than everybody else. It's intentionally set up this way. We are set up for parity.
yeah. If you want to be angry about something this morning, be angry that John Cena turned heel and kicked Cody Rhodes in the dick last night. Okay.
Yeah. That's what I'm upset about. No, I remember when we were doing our previews too, and I was looking at this and I'm like, wait, like 55? That's not even 2 points a game. Like, the hell? How is that going to be like potentially top in the table? Because, last year Arsenal down the stretch goes 18-1-1, and they end up losing the Premier League title by 2 points. Like, it's not that, right? It's okay. It's all going to be fine. We have another game next week. I wish we had one midweek just to sort of like calm everybody down, but it'll all be okay. And I mean, I think, I did the math on this a couple years ago. To win the Premier League in like the arch Liverpool City era, you have to get something close to like 2 2/3, 2 3/4 of a point a game. We're not in that boat. We need to get into the playoffs, hopefully host a series, and just play better. And, last night I was really fucking annoyed because it's a terrible way to lose a game. And we all like waited all day to watch it. And, the game itself sucked. Like, let's not brush over that too much, but long term, it's not, let's hang our heads and, go ahead and throw in the towel for the season. Like, there's a lot to play left. And, we're going against Colorado, who I think will also be a good litmus test. And we said it last week. Brad mentioned it. For me, it was much more important how we played and how we tried to play last night instead of, did we get a point? Did we get 3 points? Obviously, that would have been much easier to say if we won the game, but here we are. Scott, any hot takes?
I think my hottest take is that subbing off Owen Wolf ended our chance of getting a goal. because kind of after that happened, I felt like that was when the game completely changed to Portland having full possession and Austin not being able to get Vasquez or Zuni on the ball. And by that time, like we were really just trying to get a 0-0 at the end. Was really kind of like the goal to me.
See, I thought we were trying to chase it a little too much, especially like after the 80th minute.
I think there was a time of that, but also at the same time, like I think Azuni only ended up with like 3 touches or something like that, and like there needed to be. I don't know. I think the biggest question the Austin SC has is how do we link the midfield to the attack? And one of the things that looked really good last night was whenever Owen or Danny got on the ball, they had space to turn and they immediately went up the field and they immediately put pressure on Portland's defense. Bukhari had one too, where I think he should have passed off to Obrian, who was streaking ahead of him. And like I see where we're going. Like I see the steps of like this is a team that actually like gets the ball and tries to attack quickly. Like I skeeted about this last night. I don't know if I'm still going to use that word or bleeped. Or bleated. I don't know. We need to figure out a better term for that. But like Austin just kind of looks like a normal soccer team now. And so like you don't see that thing of like, oh, we get the ball and then we like immediately stop and we wait like 5 seconds for everybody to get in place and then we pass it and then we like wait around the whole time. Like no, like they get the ball in midfield, they turn and they go and they put pressure on the other team. And like it just miles ahead of where we were last season. And so like I understand the frustration that like more didn't happen, but at the same time, like if you don't see the progress, you're intentionally not watching the games or you're not wanting to see the progress because there is progress.
Yeah, it's not we get the ball and then everybody freezes and goes, holy shit, what am I supposed to do? It's, oh, there's space. Let's go to the space. There's space in front of me, which, as we've mentioned several times, is a massive improvement. But I thought we started slow, but generally, yeah, we looked like we wanted to go forward. We wanted to attack. Like we were the aggressor on the road in a tough place to play. Like I know everybody's kind of ragging on Portland this year. They're out a defender from a red card last week. It's still a tough place to go. It's still MLS, and taking the game to them, it ended up, blowing up in our face. But I think that initiative is definitely a positive to take away from that. Brad?
No, I'm with you. We came in, we played the game we wanted to play, I believe. Also, never easy to go play on a plastic pitch, which, we do 3 times a year, but otherwise it's not something we really do too much of. I'd be curious. For what I know from the Wolf days, I don't think we practiced on it on those weeks either. We'd always stay on it, even though we have one at Parmer. I think they would usually practice week of still on the main grass fields. So if you're not used to playing on that, that's a different animal to step into. I thought overall we did fine. My only complaint was where we had Bukhari lined up, our Bukhari lined up. We said it last week, put your best players in their best position and fit everybody else around them. His best position's on the right wing. There's no reason for him to be on the left last night. You could see that Portland did a lot of the same things to frustrate us offensively that Kansas City did. And Scott mentioned it. They sat back. They didn't really they weren't giving us an opportunity to get too many open passing lanes. They were putting extra bodies on Vasquez and Bukhari, and saying anybody else can try to come and beat us. Bukhari, we know, can win one-on-one matchups. It's really hard to win a 1-on-2 and 1-on-3 consistently. It's just the expectations don't make sense, especially when you're playing on the wrong side over on the left versus the right. So you're not really playing off your normal natural foot anyway. I don't know. You can't expect Vasquez to do too much if he's not getting a whole lot of service. I thought his free kick was freaking phenomenal last night. Have we ever had somebody from 30 yards out on our free kick that's that dangerous? Don't think so. So overall performance was fine for me. I need to see more of Uzuni. I'd like to see how these 3 are really going to play together. Uzuni was tucked in a decent amount last night, which is kind of something I know, Scott, you had speculated. He wasn't really out on that wing on the left side. So I'll be curious to see if that's something we continue with him coming in. I was really impressed with a little bit that we saw from Dubasarski. I thought he was solid, and I think the thing that's been nagging at me when we signed him and when you saw highlights of him is he was signed to be the Ilya replacement down the road, and you can see flashes of that being the case down the road here. So to me, it's a lot of positives just with the frustration from last night. If you're frustrated about not getting a result after the way we played for 89 minutes, I get that. Like, I get it. Just don't be frustrated and be willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater right now after game 2.
Yeah, I think the only we had a couple playing concerns for me. I thought we were a man light in the midfield the whole game. It felt like anytime there was a 50-50 that they won the first ball, they took the second ball and just walked it 30 yards into our zone. There were a few times too where we're looking for an extra pass, and even if you just have a lateral 5-yarder, it would have opened a ton of stuff up. But I think those are coaching adjustments we probably should have made in game. It's not a huge deal. It's something to go back and look at the tape.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought Danny and Owen both last night had a couple of opportunities. If they picked their head up, there was a runner to their right or to their left they could have laid a pass off to and had a clean shot. Instead, they just took a little too long. There was one with Owen in the second half, especially right at the top of the box, on the left side of the box, where if he looks up, he's got a free runner coming down the middle with all kinds of room to shoot, and he didn't see it. So it's just the kind of thing that I think is going to take a little more time.
Yeah, and I mean it's real game reps. We can practice it all we want, but it's not the same as going to Portland on a plastic pitch and all that shit. The other thing that I was a little concerned about, you guys mentioned Uzuni tucking in a little bit. I don't think that's surprising, but I'm not sure I see what we were trying to do with both him and Vasquez out there. And I mean, maybe it's something we're still working out, but normally, a lot of this stuff we said, well, it didn't come off, but I could see what they were trying to do. I couldn't even really put together what we were aiming for there.
Yeah, I felt like after Zuni came on, Vasquez had more freedom to come back and get the ball, almost playing more of it as a 10. But I feel like Zuni is gonna make us play in what looks more like a 2-striker system, where the two of them kind of interchange and interplay and kind of both move around a little bit, which I also think was a smart adjustment based on how Portland was playing. We needed to give Vasquez help and somebody who is playing closer to him. I actually think one of the problems was Zuni at times ended up too far left, and he needed to be tucked in more. And I think that's just kind of a thing that we're gonna have to figure out, because again, Zuni arrived 2 weeks ago. This was his first game. It takes time to build rapport and to build that kind of sense of playing together, especially for strikers. And so, I mean, I think there are questions for Austin and how we're playing, but I don't think the answers are that difficult. I think it's just a matter of these guys playing together, because even if you look at, Vasquez is new, Ozuni's new, Bakari only came half season, Owen hasn't played this position that much, Danny hasn't played this position that much. That's a lot of, I'm sorry, Ilya is new, Savovich is new. You have so many new pieces trying to put together that it's just going to take some time for them to play together, especially when not all of them were here all preseason.
Yeah, the goal to me needs to be tread water for a few months. Just learn how we talked about this last week, where we have a very nice schedule of one game a week for quite a while here. So just tread water during this time. Can you be 7th, 8th, 9th on the playoff line, somewhere in there? You're still in touching distance of making a nice run to 4th, or you're not going to get too far behind 3rd or 4th at this point, while the team gels. And then you have time in the summer and the rest of the season after the first 10, 11, 12 games to start really thinking about making a run and seeing how you're going to play long term. But you're going to have to give this team some time, is the thing that I just keep coming back to. And it's not something that's an overnight fix. It's going to take reps. It's going to take games. But overall, I still think we are already looking to be a much better team than we have been the last few years. And if you want to freak out about standings or points or whatever, we're averaging 1.5 points a game. You know what 1.5 points a game gets you in this league? 51 points. You know what 51 points get you in this league? Playoffs.
Math has always frightened me.
Yeah, also, honestly, I know we're talking about the attack a lot, but can we talk about how much better the defense looks? Just how more cohesive it looks, and
Yes.
You almost forget that Stuver's back there. Like, I know that, we love doing like the Stu chant, but like, he hasn't really gotten that much work yet. And yeah, like not everybody's played 2 games yet, but of the teams that have played 2 games, we've allowed the 4th fewest shots on goal. Like, that's not something you can ever say at any point in any 2-game stretch in Austin FC history, I would guess. And just like, you have to see the progress. Like, you just do. And so I don't know. I think this team's a lot better. I think we controlled the game for a lot of the game. The defense looks more organized. We just have to figure out the link play and attack. But, one ball, goes a couple inches the other way. Austin is up 1-0 in the first half, and they get a second, and we're back in the like, oh, we're going undefeated. We're winning the cup. Fuck everybody. Blah, blah, blah. But like, this is soccer. That's how it goes.
Yeah. And maybe with this improved defense, Stuver actually gets acknowledged as being a hell of a keeper for a change by the rest of the league.
Yeah, I think the big thing I've noticed that last year it always felt like we had 4 defenders, and now it feels like we have a defensive unit. So like Svadek slid in for Julio, and I like forgot about it in the second half. I was just like, oh yeah, he didn't start the game, did he?
Yeah,
he wasn't a liability. It just looked like we plugged in the next piece. I'm going to push back a little bit because I think Stuver's at fault on the goal.
I don't disagree with that. I think that's one of those situations of like, and we kind of talked about it last week when it comes to set pieces and how like the big trend has just been like, putting it close to the goal and make the defense make plays. And like, that's exactly what DaCosta did. Like, he swung in essentially a cross from the free kick that was on target, and we had a bunch of guys running at the keeper. And yeah, like, it's one of the rare times you're going to get Stuver flat-footed, but like, you also have to credit that like that was a really good free kick, and they did a really good job of putting traffic in front of him. It's one of those things that if he comes out and he misses it, or it gets headed by him, then we don't necessarily fault him, but he's tracking the free kick more than he's tracking the header, but then he misses the free kick. And so it just,
yeah,
I don't know. It's a tough, like, you're fucked if you do, you're fucked if you don't, move or stay there. And again, it just like, if he gets the save or it's like a reaction save, then like, we're like, oh, what an amazing keeper Stuver is, which he is, by the way.
That's one of those, like, it's legitimately probably top 2 or 3 toughest plays for a keeper to make.
Yeah.
Ball falls in the 6 like that. You got a wall of players running at you on the set piece. And like Scott just said, if the ball's even flicked a little bit, if Stuver makes an early move, a smallest touch on that ball from anyone, and that's in the back of the net, he has zero chance to react to it. And we've seen with him over 4 seasons now that his reaction time is pretty damn quick, especially on some of those close plays. He's very, and I mean this in a good way, he's very twitchy, and can make a move fast. So you have to respect that part, because I think you also, as a keeper, you're expecting someone to get a touch on it. 85, 90% of the time, someone's getting a touch on that ball. This just happened to be one of those times where it didn't, and it was well placed. So it sucks, but I don't know that I really fault anyone on that goal. It's just kind of a fluky, weird goal.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys mentioned, he did put a great ball in, and that's what, that play is essentially designed to do, right? Is cause chaos and hope something happens. But for me, with how close that ball is to the goal when somebody would have made contact with it, Stuver has to play the actual like free kick himself, and like maybe I'm just over center backing this. Let your defenders, keep somebody from getting a shot on target. You play the ball, either come get it or make sure you don't let it bounce in like that for me. Because if somebody gets a touch, even if he's, the twitchiest goalkeeper in history, I don't think you're saving it unless somebody hits it straight at you.
Yeah, I can see the argument for coming out and trying to punch it, right? Because if you do, in my opinion, keepers are overprotected, right? So if he were to come out and make a punch and he gets touched or something, or he gets hit on the play, he's probably going to get a foul called in his favor in the first place. So I can actually see that argument. It makes sense to me, but it's just one of those where I'm not going to lose sleep over it, I guess. I would actually put more of the blame on Vasquez than anybody.
Yeah, I was going to clarify. It's not like Andrew Tarbell throwing a ball in his own net.
Yeah, I mean, the foul that set it up was pretty foolish. Yes, it was a bit of a foul, but it's not what I'm going to argue too heavily, because I still think it was a foul. And it's one that you just can't make at that time of the game, and especially at that position of the field. And we need our $10 million DPs to know better.
Yeah, and it did seem like for about...
I have this pet theory that I have this pet theory that whenever it's a softer foul or a foul that you're just kind of like, oh, that's silly, kind of a thing, like the set piece is more likely to score. And I have no actual evidence or metric to be able to do this, but I swear just from anecdotally watching, that's the case. And that was absolutely one of those fouls. The bigger problem is that I would prefer that our $10 million striker not be tracking back that far.
Yeah, I think that was kind of my issue, was for the 10 minutes before that, or maybe it was just when Azuni came on, but Vasquez seemed to go a lot more into hero ball mode. And, it wasn't the end of the world. There were a couple of plays where he tried to get something started and got the ball stolen, fine, whatever it happens. I'm kind of nuanced on this one. I don't think where he called a foul was a foul, but he was fouling him about 10 yards further back in the field. So if he'd called that one, I would have been fine with it. But, again, like you guys kind of said, you put yourself in that spot, you can't really complain about it too much.
Yeah, going back to your hero ball comment, I thought a big problem Austin had in the first half was whenever Bukhari got on the ball, we just kind of ball watched. It just made me feel like they're just waiting for him to beat his man and then do something. But you have to always move things and move the defense around behind you, especially when Portland was playing so compact and was set up in stages to be able to defend him. You have to do something to mess with the help defense, to take a basketball example. And I didn't feel as though anybody, especially the guys who I think should be doing it, which would be Owen and Danny, were doing enough to kind of get into those areas and force their defense to move and give him more space. And so I think that's part of where the hero ball comes in, is that ultimately, if you don't have anybody moving or trying to help you out, you're kind of stuck doing hero ball because you don't have anything else to do.
Yeah, and there were a few times that Bukhari actually beat 1, 2, 3 guys and then picked up his head, and everybody was like, oh shit, I should have been standing here. And so even when he did manage to do the impossible, we didn't give him any help.
Yeah, I had written that down in my notes last night of something to talk about. It was specifically in the 39th minute. If you go back and watch the match, he beats someone on the left side 1 versus 2, and there was nowhere to go with the ball because, just like Scott said, everyone was watching Bukhari as opposed to making a movement to give him a place to pass off to. So that's got to get fixed, and we did a lot of that, in my opinion, at times when Driussi was here. Where we're just like, oh, the guy's got the ball, we're not going to really do anything. And you can't do everything by yourself, man. You just can't. So you need the midfielders to be a little more aware. I don't know if that's a youth thing. I hate saying a youth thing with Danny and Owen because these are two guys who have been playing in this league now for 4+ years. In Owen's case, 3.5, because he started halfway through the 21 season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, yeah, these are guys who've been playing enough to know better. So I know they're not playing as forward as they have been the last 2 weeks, but you should know better to start moving off the ball a little more. So that's got to be fixed, in my opinion. But
yeah, I think it's a little, I don't want to call it youth either. It's a new system.
Yeah.
They're adjusting to that. And I think there's still some deprogramming going on.
Yeah.
Guys like Owen and Danny who were in Wolf Ball for a very long time. But, I mean, it's a learning experience. Like we said, it's week 2.
I mean, you could argue that Owen's been in Wolf Ball in his entire life. He has 20 years of, ingrained programming to get rid of now.
Okay, I'm going to cut this off before we have a weird, Wolf Ball eugenics discussion.
I'm going to argue that Owen will always be Wolf Ball because his last name.
The Lone Wolf.
He's going to redefine Wolf Ball.
Yeah, there we go. We'll get a nice Wolf Ball redux. Here we go. You don't even want Wolf Ball.
Yeah, that's why Messi's staying home tonight. He's scared of it.
Yeah, exactly. There's another big, I guess we'll talk about it now, refereeing decision, we'll call it. I don't remember who it was, the center back for Portland. threw an elbow at Vasquez. I have thoughts on this, but I want to hear. Let's go Scott's take first.
I thought overall the ref wasn't like terrible. I thought he was just kind of like average MLS level, which was fine. I just thought I'll let you get in on the final part because I think you have a better take than I do. I just think that he kind of lost the plot at the end and was just kind of like, we need to end this.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I was actually thinking about it in like the 80th minute, where I was like, "Oh, ref's actually done like not like killer, but like decent job today." And every time I have that thought, I'm like, "Wait, there's still 10 minutes to go."
I, I thought the Vasquez elbow was somewhere between a yellow card and Millwall's keeper kicking somebody's head off.
Yeah, well, according to Michael Oliver, if you flying ninja kick somebody in the face, it's not even a foul. So many Millwall fans were chanting "Let him die" while he was knocked out on the field and getting taken off on a ambulance. Classy
That's
Millwall folks.
That's very Millwall. I was about to say.
Yeah. If you don't know anything about Millwall, everybody who read that went, "Yeah." No, for me, I know a lot of people are thinking guys should have been sent off. I'm going to say two what are going to sound contradictory, but really aren't statements. As somebody who has been a bit of a grinder in certain sports, the guy definitely elbowed him the fuck on purpose. And I think there's absolutely enough plausible deniability when you look at the camera shot of it that you can't send him off for it. But I think all the Austin FC players know, and especially Vasquez, know that was intentional.
In college basketball terms, it's a flagrant one. If you follow college basketball, there's a difference between like if flagrant one means 2 shots in the ball and a technical foul kind of thing, and you're on essentially what is a yellow card. Flagrant 2 means you're out of the game. It's flagrant one.
Yeah, I guess the mistake here for me is like I don't think they should have gone to VAR and given a red, but like it was called a foul on the field, so you saw it and you see the blood coming out of his face. It's got to be a yellow card. So like I could get if like he didn't see it, they don't go back and give the red, but like it's almost like the handball last week where it's like, well, he caught it, throw in. It's like, wait, what? There were multiple like ways to do this, and you somehow picked like some combination where you got everything wrong.
Which is interesting because he wasn't averse to giving yellows last night. Like there were 5 yellows against Portland in that match last night. We only had 1, so it's not like he was leaving the card in the pocket all game.
No, a lot of those were counterattacks, and you'll see this with refs. They have like one kind of yellow they really like to give. Like there are a couple Premier League refs where they will give a yellow card only for like stopping a counterattack. You could literally like chainsaw somebody's head off as we're watching Newcastle. And they won't say anything, but I think that's kind of the bucket he was in. It was like there were enough, I think this is stopping a counter yellows, and he just got into a groove on it. And kind of like once you give one, you have to keep giving them two.
Yeah, he definitely fell into that. I thought he missed like one against Portland kind of early against Ortiz that could have resulted in him getting sent off later. But besides that, like he was pretty consistent of like if there's a counterattack going and he fouled the guy, it's a yellow. Like
yeah, I mean, I know we talk about refs every week. I don't think this is if we get this reffing performance every week, I'm fine with it.
It was pretty inoffensive.
Yeah. Something will be much worse this year, I guarantee you. When talk about subs or I think that's the starting lineup we were thinking. I assume we're all in agreement that, especially if we're going to have Bukhari try to beat 2-3 guys, play him on his natural side. I don't think there's any shock in the starting lineup. An interesting note that Dyson didn't make the bench.
I was going to say that was my only eyebrow raiser was, a guy making that kind of money and we brought over here as a center back a couple of years ago is not even making the game day 20 to travel. It's pretty, it's concerning to me.
Yeah, I don't know if that means there's maybe a sale on the books or he's injured or what, but it was certainly something we weren't expecting.
Yeah, I wondered how much of it is, and we'll obviously have more data points in the future, but I wondered how much of it was that Nico just wanted more attacking and midfield options based on like game state, as opposed to like having more defenders to bring on. It's also one of those things of like, do you need a 4th center back versus like another midfielder? Like, I think I'd rather have another midfielder there. And we're kind of fortunate that like we didn't have a like 2023 center back injury crisis since Julio had to go out, but he was walking around, so it seemed okay. And also like going back to like kind of like circle back this conversation, but like it's important to have a consistent starting lineup when you're trying to get everybody integrated and get like those relationships and that like camaraderie going. Like having some kind of like, okay, here's my 11, here's how we're going to play for a while, like makes sense while we're building that.
Yeah, and I thought Julio played fine again last night. I thought he made a couple of really nice big clearances. Overall, he was good in the time that he played, so really no issue with him starting over Svatak last night, even though I still think Svatak's a better pure center back. Um, the Leo thing's interesting to me from a long-term roster building perspective because we already have one international slot still open on this roster for the summer. I think we're going to have two for the summer window because if Leo is here past August, I'll be stunned. I think he's probably going to get transferred back overseas at some point, which will open up a secondary roster spot. So I think this team, probably from a construction standpoint and talent standpoint, is going to improve a little more before the end of the year. But otherwise, lineup was fine, expected. It's just, again, my only complaint is where we played Bukhari.
Yeah, I know we were talking before the show. Did you, or next week we'll ask, do you want to see Sabovic either in for, I didn't think we played Ilya as a quarterback as much, and that, kind of goes back to my criticism about the midfield that I talked about earlier, but would you like to see Sabovic for either Danny Owen or Ilya next week?
So I thought Danny was much better last night than he was in week one. I was very critical on here last week of Danny and how he played in the opener. And I thought last night was much more progressive with his dribbling, his passing, and overall just cleaner. I'm with Scott where the midfield seemed weird when Owen came off late in the match. The combination that I want to see at some point is Sabovic and Owen. Because we've only seen him play with Danny so far in the midfield. I'd like to see how those two play together because I think, yes, Danny is a little more of a dribbler, but I think with the way that Owen and Sabovic make passes, it'll open up a little more of that linking play for everybody up front. And Sabovic, to me, one, he's also, that shot he took in like the 80th minute, really freaking good shot that almost went in. So not only from a passing perspective, but just an overall attacking perspective, I think Sabovic gives us a little more. And I want to see him and Owen play. I think that's the next step in the next progression because while I still think Danny had a very good game last night overall, I think there needs to be a question of, is he a locked-in starter for this club right now? And should he be?
I mean, mix and match. If somebody's playing well, play the hot hand. We don't have to have it's nice to have a set starting lineup, especially when we're talking about, some disjointed passing. But if people are flowing together or you have a combo that works better, do that. Part of the construction I'm noticing, especially after seeing Duber-Sarski a little bit yesterday, is basically anybody on this team who we have in midfield can play any of those midfield positions. Like maybe we're going to keep Ilya only at 6, but all those other guys, you could put them anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know that with Duber-Sarski you can do that. I think Dubes is a true 6. And we got to figure out what we're going to call this guy, Dubes or Duber-Sarski or Duber or Doobie. I don't know. But
can we not call him Duber?
But I think he's
bullied in an 80s high school movie.
I think he's more of a true crushing 6. That play he made where he kind of came out of nowhere for a slide tackle to stop a counter and the ball went out of bounds on the touchline was absolutely phenomenal. And that's the kind of stuff that you see in his highlights before he came over. So I'm excited to see more of him. And it gives me a nice bit of hope that we can comfortably rest Ilya and manage his minutes this year without losing anything.
Or losing too much. Scott, you want to weigh in on our midfieldiness?
Yeah, I want to see more of Sabovic because I think his passing range helps to balance Owen and Danny's kind of like more dribbling. And also, we saw it a couple times last night of just like, if they're going to put that many bodies around Vasquez, then we need to have somebody who's going to take a shot and use that space that's been seeded to try to do something. And I don't know, we talk about it every week, but like challenging MLS keepers is always a good idea. Like, let's hit a hard shot on goal, make them make saves, make them, make the defense clean up rebounds. So I'd like to see more Savage with. I actually want to see Savage, Danny, and Owen more, which I think is our best attacking setup. Just so long as like we're still able to maintain like some kind of like defensive structure, which I think we'll still be able to do even without Ilya, who I thought was kind of meh last night.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like Ilya playing bad or we just didn't get him into the game much. Kind of column A, column B.
Yeah, I think it's also a thing that like we talk about like resting and like playing the hot hand a little bit. Like Ilya is not going to be a 30-match starter anymore at his age. Like that's an unreasonable expectation to have. And so I think trying to like get him a little more rest during the season will work.
Yeah, I don't think any of us were surprised he ended up with the armband. Were you surprised to see Heinz Ike take it over when Ilya went off?
No, I think that to me the hierarchy of captaincy is Ilya, and then I think probably Julio, and then Heinz Ike, because I think Julio had come off injured by that time, and so I think like that's kind of like the hierarchy of like the top three. And after that, we're kind of in trouble in terms of picking out who the captain would be.
It'd be, to me, it's Dessler after that, right?
Yeah.
It would make the most sense.
Probably.
Yeah.
That would be my guess, but I also hope that we're not down to like our fourth captain.
Yeah.
Like that would just be a bad sign.
I'm one of those people that like you don't have to get captain right, just don't get it wrong. So like we had multiple choices. I'm kind of
like I think picking captain is kind of one of those just like standard workplace things of like if you're like promoting somebody, like one of the first thoughts you have to have is like how is the rest of the team going to take this news or have this selection. And so like if you pick captain, like you have to immediately take into mind like, okay, what's the rest of the squad going to think about this? And so that's just when like soccer becomes a workplace.
Yeah, and apparently the players had a lot of input before the technical staff made the final decision on who the captain was. So I would assume they took that input in deciding like hierarchy of the band too, of when Ilya is not on and who's next up, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you guys think we're going to see a shakeup next week, or do you think we're going to go, well, to the extent we can probably Svadek instead of Julio, but roughly same 11? Do we think Uzuni gets a start?
I think Uzuni's in the lineup next week. I'd be shocked if he isn't at this point.
Paying the man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I can go either way on it, to be honest. I could definitely see him starting. I think I'm interested to see what it looks like when we start him and if he's playing more centrally or just kind of like the setup is kind of different to make room for his skills over a more traditional winger like Obrian. Yeah, I know. I wouldn't be surprised to see Salvage get a start somewhere. Like maybe like that's a good time to like be like Ilya doesn't start 3 games in a row, kind of a thing. But I feel like Nico's trying to build up a regular lineup, and so I don't think we're just going to have that many changes unless they're required.
Yeah, and that hits me to something I want to talk about too. Was some point last night I saw a few people with the take of, where was Galley? Why didn't he come in the 80th minute? It's like, guys, you've got to rest your head around the fact that Gallagher and Obrian are going to have reduced roles this year because you need your DPs on the field as much as possible playing together. You're paying them the most money on the team. You're not going to take them off too many times to bring on a Hade Obrian or a John Gallagher. As much as I love them, it's just not going to happen that often. So be okay with that and understand their roles are just wildly different this year than in the past.
And also a sign of that the roster is better.
Yes.
Like, yes, I know we love John Gallagher. Everybody does. There's, I don't want the Galley Gals to come at me, but at the same time, like, John Gallagher should be a bench player in this league. Like, if he's a regular starter for you, you're probably a bad team. And I can say that because when he's been a starter for us, we've been a bad team. And so, like, it's just part of what happens in soccer when you improve the roster is that the players who used to be starters shouldn't be starters anymore because you got better players than that.
Well, also, like, Galley's weapon is he's fast, right? Like, he's a utility guy. We can play him a bunch of places. That's why he's on the team. But, his quote-unquote superpower is being super fast. When he's on the field, I want him running entire defenses.
Yeah, like his strongest attributes are his speed and his work ethic. And so, like, that's the last thing you want when you've been playing for 70 minutes chasing somebody around is for them to bring in another guy who's just as fast and is going to run his hardest the whole time. Like that's just a like psychological thing of like, well, shit, I have to do this more. And that really is his advantage. And plus that like you can plug and play him anywhere. I realized that like in doing like the Moon Tower over unders, one of the fun ones I could have done was how many times does Gallagher change positions during a game? Like, because he's probably going to change positions every time he's out there.
Yeah, he did it the first game for sure.
But you just hit on it, Scott. You said one of the things you want from Gallagher or Obrian is that you want them running entire defenses. But it gets back to my point of how often is that going to be the case? Because to do that with the way we're probably going to be set up, that means taking off one of your high-priced DPs. And I just don't see that happening a ton unless we're way up in the match or if we're way down and we need to change something. If we're in a tight game like last night, I can see why we're going to leave on Bukari longer than maybe some people thought. You're paying that guy some of the most money on the team. He is one of the most skilled players on the team. And even when he's a little tired, he's faster than everybody else on the damn field. So unless you're bringing on something that is going to dynamically change the game, and I don't know that Gallagher or Obrian do that if you pull off Uzuni or you pull off Bukari, I just don't see too many situations where they're going to sub in for them.
So I actually thought the move that should have been made yesterday was bring on Gallagher for Biru, because I thought that Biru was, I thought Biru had a pretty weak game, especially defensively early on, and I thought he didn't do a good enough job of getting into the attack. And when we talk about players not making movement around Bukari, especially when he's on the left side, it's Biru. Like Biru is the one who should be able to help unlock him and move around. And I think Gallagher, in the same way that like. What really helped Diego in 2022 was having Gallagher around, moving and forcing the defense to counter that. I think that would have been helpful then. And so I thought putting him in more as a like winger was kind of not the right move there.
Yeah, I specifically on Gallagher, I want to see him as a sub, as a fullback. Obrian, like if we assume we have some sort of front three of Bukari, Vasquez, and Uzuni, if we're chasing a goal late in the game, throw on Obrian and keep the other three out there. There's nothing that says we have to do this like rigid, everybody stands in their spot, FIFA 08 4-3-3 bullshit.
You could play 4-4-2 and put Obrian on the left, either one of the wings, and play, Vasquez and Uzuni as dual strikers in that way. Easily.
Sacrifice a midfielder for another forward. You can do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and then it becomes kind of more of like a 4-2-2-2 because we're just going to keep listing different number combinations until we end this conversation.
See, I'm always a big fan of the Arsene Wenger method of if you need a goal, just keep throwing on 10s until you score.
See, I kind of agree with that too, because at some point, like, you just have to keep throwing on like attackers who are used to playing in the box. Like, if we need a goal, like, yeah, take off a midfielder for an attacker, and if you still need a goal, take off another midfielder for another attacker, or like bring in like Rubio, who you can throw out there and can still kind of like nominally do some midfield work.
Yeah. Were you guys surprised to not see Rubio or Fodry yesterday? I wasn't, but
Rubio was a little surprised he didn't see the field. Fodre, not at all. I think Fodre is going to be a spot player on this team, get occasional work. And I think in the midweek, we'll see Fodre a little more, and during international breaks, cup games, things like that. That's Fodre's spot this year, and that's fine.
Yeah, I was going to mention about figuring out Uzuni and Vasquez. It looks like the 23rd will be playing San Diego, and Vasquez may still be away at Nations League with the U.S., so we may see Uzuni as a central striker for that game, assuming he's not called up to Albania, but we'll see. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the other thing I kind of liked about yesterday is we can still play with this stuff a little bit. It's not like this has to be the one true formation and the one true way to play soccer and the one true offense. It's like, oh, okay, well.
Yeah, it goes
around a little bit.
I think, too, it goes back to something we said last week, but when we brought on subs last night, the team didn't get demonstrably worse. Like, we still were competitive. We still played pretty well. We had the weird goal at the end against us, but if you really sit back and watch, did we start losing some possession in the last 15 minutes or so? Yes. Was that possession threatening for the most part? that was Josh Wolfball. It was a horseshoe of sadness that Portland was playing, just kicking around the back with no real threatening plays in. So for the most part, I didn't feel like our subs hurt us last night. I'm with you. I'd like to see a couple of different subs. I think Scott makes a really good point about Wolf coming off, but overall, we don't have this huge gap of starters who probably shouldn't be starters in MLS to then subs coming in. It's like, holy hell, how do you have a job in this league? That's gone.
Yeah, and I think having to take Julio off too messed with our sub patterns, because to me it seemed like that first batch of subs was about 5-10 minutes too late. We were kind of letting the game get out of hand and let Portland kind of chunk around with us a bit. And I think not having that extra sub window kind of messed with us.
I actually was curious if we were going to try to get to the half with 10 men to
I'm
save
glad
us.
we didn't, but I thought about it.
Yeah. Because we were only about 2 or 3 minutes away from that point.
I feel like that's tempting fate with that much time, but yeah, I always think about that during games too.
Yeah, I think it's tempting fate, and it's also like, I don't know. I just don't see us making a like non like for like sub there. Like I don't see us trying to do a like 3-man backline of like Dessler and Beer and Heinzike, even though like that could possibly work, but I just don't see us doing that like this early in the season.
Yeah, I think you'd be more likely to see Ilie drop back there than you would sticking too many other folks in there. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like a mistake. I just think maybe Nico was keeping his powder a little more dry because he only had two subs or two sub windows instead of three. But I mean, coaching overall, what did you guys think? We've kind of been talking about the whole setup, and we've actually been a little more tactico today than normal, but it's nice, isn't it, that we're actually talking about that? So, I mean, general thoughts on Nico, and then I think we'll go to stocks rising and falling unless you guys want to hit some other stuff.
I think it was fine. I didn't see anything too egregious out of Nico last night. This team is playing more attacking soccer, getting what we were promised out of him. Scott hit it on the head for me earlier. We just need to figure out what the combination is in the midfield to unlock Vasquez, to really give him a chance to get more into the game. You could tell a couple of times we were trying a few long balls to see if he could get on the end of one and get moving. I think some of our counter-attacking play will get better over time. This isn't on Nico, but the one thing we did not hit on, Bulgari's decision on that counter in the first half was god-awful, with Obrian streaking to his right and deciding to try to shoot between three players. But otherwise, I didn't see anything coaching-wise that I thought was that concerning. And I'm also here to reiterate, defensively, we are so much better. And that is a massive step forward to me, because you can win a lot of games with only giving up 0 or 1, right? You're never going to be out of a match if we're playing defense like this, which is something we haven't been able to say all the time.
Yeah, and a draw in MLS on the road is fine. So it's not like you mentioned earlier where we have to literally win every single game. It's like, oh, okay, we go away to a tough place to play and get a draw. That's fine. Scott,
we weren't playing for a 0-0 draw. That's
no, and I think this is it's not a criticism. I'm going to call it an observation. I thought we fell into a trap that they set for us in the last 10 or so minutes, where you mentioned they were horseshoeing and I think we were going after the ball too much, instead of just kind of, it's not great, but sit back and let them make a mistake instead of go and try to force it on them. On the road, I like that we're going for the win. I just think we could have been a little more smart about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I kind of disagree with that, because I think Portland, as much as there was a lot of discussion during the game of like, oh, we have a deeper bench and we can wear them down and blah blah blah, I thought Portland got stronger, and I think some of that was being at home. I don't know how much Austin fell into the trap as much as we couldn't figure out the answers when the midfield changed. And kind of like how to, it felt more like the kind of like, not horseshoe of sadness, but what I think of as like foosball, where like you kind of have like three solid lines and nobody intermixes. And I thought our midfield just kind of ended up being like the foosball line. Um, I thought overall, like, I think the team looks really good. Like it's such a market improvement from last year in terms of defensive structure and organization and progressing the ball forward. And like I think the biggest frustration is one, losing the game late like that to a team that that a lot of people think is going to be bad. And I think this roster kind of just makes sense together as long as Nico kind of like figures out that sub pattern a little bit better, or the team just kind of figures it out on the field more. And so unfortunately, like the way to fix that is just like having patience, which as soccer fans, like a lot of us just don't have. Um, but I thought Nico has a clear plan, has a clear way to play. The team's doing it. It looks a lot better. I haven't been able to watch the press conference, but the comments that I saw were him taking accountability for it. And I think some of it is just kind of, I think we forget about this a lot of like, oh, well, he's a soccer coach. He knows what blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, he has to figure it out too. And like the soccer team isn't just going to like tell you exactly what the problems are or like how to fix it. Like you have to figure that out on your own. And so until he gets more time and gets more time with everybody here, which I think is which is a, not thought about enough fact, like it's going to be kind of like this and disjointed, but we're so far ahead of where we were like last year and even in 2022. Like I'm actually excited about where this team can go because there's just a basic structure to it that we've not had before. Like our defense isn't good because Stuver's bailing us out all the time. Our defense is good because we actually like intercept the ball and make tackles and like don't rely on him to just make saves. Like that's such a marked difference from like the Wolf teams that just don't do anything on defense.
Yeah, and I mean, I think part of what we did on defense too is just simplify, because it looked like the only ways they were going to score was a silly mistake from us, which I mean, kind of ultimately did. But up until the goal, they had like maybe one or two little chances that we had kind of a dumb little either giveaway or didn't track correctly on the defensive side, or they had a couple on set pieces where they just whacked it up and we didn't defend it well. But yeah, it's not like everybody's on three different lines. And, that Minnesota game to open last year was, I know we only lost like, what was it, 2-1 or 1-0, something like that. But it was absolutely diabolical on every level of the pitch. And we lost by the same amount of goals as we did today. And we were the much, much better team. So yeah, much improvement. I know we won the points, but we'll take it, keep going forward. I
Yeah,
don't know
like
how many times we can say that.
yeah, like that's the thing is that like you look at like all the underlying stats and it's like we lost possession because the last 20 minutes. XG was the same. We had more shots on target. Passes were because we gave up in the 20 or because we kind of lost possession in the last 20 minutes. I don't know. Like I thought it was an even game, and they managed to finish a chance, and we didn't. And sometimes that's just all soccer is.
Yeah, as you said a few times now, like sometimes that's going to happen. We can, in the future, it'd be nice if we create more, but if we're in this spot, sometimes you're going to win this game, sometimes you're going to lose this game, sometimes it'll be a draw.
As Scott said, this league is built to be a parity league. Wins and losses are in the margins. That's all it is. And last night we got beat just a little bit on the margins, and that's why we lost the match. That is going to happen in MLS.
Like if you want to be reductive about like Austin's season so far, like the difference in the games is when our DPs score and when their DPs score.
Well, too, I mean, mathematically, both of those games could have easily been draws. We're better off with a win and a loss. So, I'm kind of fine with, going for it like that. So I think we're in a positive spot. And like we said, it's the fucking second week. We want to hit our stride and our high point in September, October. I don't want to do it in February, March.
Yes. You look at teams like Philly coming out flying high these first 2 weeks, like, holy crap, okay, that's a lot more than I expected of Philly, but is that sustainable? Did they get figured out? 2022, we were great early in the season and we got figured out. So it's okay to let a team build into the season in this league. You don't have to be perfect from day one. And again, I just where we started the conversation. April 27, 2024, LA Galaxy got worked at Q2 Stadium. Worked. LA Galaxy won the championship, won the West, number one seed in the West, won the whole damn thing, and we were sitting at home, didn't even get a playoff game. So just, it's okay to breathe. It's okay to let guys gel and come in and figure things out for a while.
No. All right. Moving on. Brad, you want to give us your first stock rising?
Yeah, I had to write down the notes. I mentioned it earlier, but the little bit we saw of Dubasarski, that's my stock rising. I thought he was very good. I think he has the potential to be the best 6 we maybe ever had by the time he's all said and done here. And I think there's going to be a conversation around August or September of should he be starting over Ilya.
Yeah, Ilya is on a 1+1, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I fully believe we signed Dubasarski to be Ilya's long-term replacement. I just think that replacement might happen before the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, whoever's ready to take us on the playoff charge. Scott, how about your stock rising?
First side tangent. We are at the 91st minute of Newcastle and Brighton. Newcastle had somebody sent off, and Brighton just had somebody sent off. So the last 5 minutes is going to be 10v10, which is going to be very entertaining.
Yeah, Newcastle actually got somebody sent off for violent conduct. I've never seen that before.
Seriously. My stock rising is just Austin FC style of play. And I've come back to this. I read this in my notes last night, but like, it's just so nice to see Austin just kind of play like a normal team again. Like, we're not stuck in this like wolf ball passing pattern that's just, slow and plodding. There were actual like defensive actions of like people like intercepting passes last night, like in ways that like you just don't see Austin do if you go back and watch those games. And so I think the stock rising is just like the overall like system that we get to watch of Austin as actually being like fun to watch, which is just a weird thing to say out loud.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it too, and like you can go pick like any 10-minute stretch, and you will see us exploit space, make the right passes, make the right decisions. Like, hey, this game's it's incredibly complicated, but also it's not that complicated.
Yeah. And VAR pending, Newcastle might have just gotten the winner.
Oh nope, he's off. Yep, definitely off. And we get to see the cool new crash test dummies this time for however the fucking PGMOL is going to fuck this up.
That's why I said VAR pending. Like, just because he's offside doesn't mean they're going to get it right.
I mean, that's a pretty nice hit for a center back.
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely off.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, his own guy made him offside by preventing the defender to move back.
Yeah. Well, there's gonna be a bunch of sad Geordies here in a second. Yeah, I mean, mine was kind of similar. I had like mentality, but it's kind of the same idea as you, where we're going to win games. That's our goal. We're not going out there to like, make some higher art form of soccer in the perfect system or whatever fucking bullshit we've been trying to do the past couple of years. We are going out there to win the game. We don't care if we do it easy, hard, pretty, not pretty, face goal, not face goal, whatever. And it sounded like Heinz Eich in the post game presser. I haven't had a chance to watch all of it either. The team's fucking pissed that they lost, and that's a much better place to be than we tried, didn't do exactly what we tried to execute in practice this week. I don't know. The players just aren't doing what they need to do. Shit. So I'm glad that we're actually like, it seems like we care. Like Vasquez looked pissed the last 20, 30 minutes of that game. So harness some aggression. Yeah. Scott, you want to give us your stock falling?
My stock falling actually is Biru, which I kind of alluded to a little bit earlier. I thought defensively, especially in the first half, he got beat a few times. I didn't think he got himself involved in the attack enough. And I really do think that like there's just more that he can bring that would really help when Bukhari's over on the left side. That's really needed when that's kind of like the focus of our attack.
Ooh, these are some spiffy crash test dummies. Oh no, that one's creepy. Wait, no, I don't like this. Yeah, Biro is my choice too. So Yeah, he just seemed to have like an off night. I don't know if it's any like long-term thing to worry about, but it happens. Brad, how about you?
Stock following is Apple TV for telling us 3 times that Josh Wolf is our head coach.
That was my
It's
moment of
pretty
suffering.
basic to me that the TV partner should probably figure out who the freaking coach of the team is for a graphic. I don't know.
It's week 2. Like I mean, it's not acceptable either, but like if that happened the first week, I'd kind of be like, whatever. They forgot to hit save on the updated graphic or something. But like, it's the second week, guys.
Also, on the Apple TV front, the announcer for consistently saying Svetak, man, there is a literal pronunciation guide on the team website that you can go listen to everything. I understand.
No, they fucked it up.
I understand you probably have a job during the week to do as well, but basic broadcasting from a play-by-play perspective is to figure out the roster, and while you have the roster in front of you, write out phonetically if you need to, so that you don't screw that up. And when you have a week between games at Apple TV, you've got the time at night during the week to prep for that. If I can do it for a high school football broadcast 45 minutes before kickoff, I promise you the professionals there should be able to do it for a high-level professional soccer match.
Well, doesn't Apple already produce this? They have like a phonetic guide, and they're all sitting in the like. They're not even sending people out to games anymore. They're broadcasting from HQ. You guys can share homework from the week before.
Yes, this is not difficult. It's not.
The announcer last night also got Danny, Ilie, and Biru confused, like in the same like 45 seconds when the yellow card came out. And I understand that like there can be confusion watching the game sometimes. Like there are players who just kind of like look alike, and like Bukuri and O'Brien changed numbers this season, so that always gets confusing when I see the numbers out there. But like,
yeah,
guys, it's your job.
Owen and Danny are throwing me off with the haircuts.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Last night, I thought it was
they're
Danny
popping up in the same spots, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, wow, Owen's got a really nice dribble. Oh, that's Danny.
But yeah, just the basics of, and I can actually understand him misidentifying Danny on the yellow because they're not at the game. They're actually doing. I think they're broadcasting from the new MLS broadcast HQ up in Connecticut, which is the former home of WWE. But what they are doing, and that Danny yellow when it happened, or the yellow that we thought was on Danny but wasn't, was actually on Peter. They were showing Danny on camera, but you could clearly see the ref point away from Danny to somewhere else. So I could kind of understand where the confusion came in from the announcer's part, but for me, it's the basics of just pronunciation. Fix that, man. Fix it. And I say this as a guy who consistently mispronounced our DP10's name for the last year and a half, 2 years on this podcast. Okay?
That is the most common comment we ever got, by the way.
Yes.
Why does Brad say it that way?
Fine. Difference, I'm not getting paid to do this on national TV.
Well, yeah, and I mean, some of those it just feels like they're not even making an attempt. So, and I mean, like, these are people who are soccer announcers, right? Like, you didn't pull. I know when Fox first got the rights to the World Cup, their big thing was they were going to have Gus Johnson do it, and he literally was like, "Guys, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I can't say any of these people's names. Like, I'll do it, but no, it's a bad idea." Like, these are people who are like around soccer, and you see like names and similar sounds and stuff, and like, I guess I'm thinking about this and then going, well, nobody in the English media actually knows how to do this either. But I think that's just a general Englishness and refusal to learn things than mispronouncing them. But yeah, I mean, like, we're not expecting them to roll out like Usman Bukhari or something like that. Just like, oh, Bukhari, like, just try. Yeah. Anyway, kind of stole that one from you.
Oh, I was just going to say that Gus Johnson should be required by law to call March Madness games.
Yes, Gus Johnson's fantastic.
He used to.
Yeah.
And then he signed with Fox.
Yeah, it's also a weird thing where like CBS doesn't do that many college games, and so like their commentator roster isn't great. Like,
yeah,
I always thought it was weird that like the most famous college basketball announcer is Dick Vitale, and I don't think he ever called March Madness games until like the very end of his career. And so it just always like, to me, like that always kind of put a damper on it.
Fun side note that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but now you're talking about college basketball and who's broadcasting it. There's a great female play-by-play broadcaster named Lisa Byington. So she's actually the broadcaster for the Milwaukee Bucks, and she does games during March Madness for CBS now as well. She used to cover the minor league team locally when I was broadcasting baseball 20 plus years ago. So I knew her way back then. She's an amazing lady. She's fantastic at her job. And I think personally at the highest levels, the best play-by-play female broadcaster in the U.S. As more and more women get chances to do play-by-play, she has been the very, very best to me across all sports.
Nice. Yeah, keep an eye out during March Madness. You're talking about Gus Johnson doing the NCAA tournament. Now I need him paired with Jim Nance, just for the differing levels of, very soft-spoken, nice golf announcer guy versus screaming all the time. Some nice contrast there.
Gus doing golf would be amazing.
He would explode. He would explode.
Especially so, if imagine if he was doing y'all don't follow golf like I do, but there was a guy on the European tour this week who had 2 holes in one in the same round, and imagine if that was on TV and Gus was calling it. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like Schefter from 40 feet. And he rims it in. Yeah, we'd have to get him some oxygen after that, but. All right. Well, that's a good place to get back to what we were actually doing. Yeah, since Scott stole mine, I'm gonna remind everybody why we do this and why the format is what it is. This does not mean I think a player is bad or the player even had that bad of a game. It is an estimation of where they were before and where they are now. And mine is going to be Stuver because we had him on a pedestal before, and then we realized he is in fact fallible. So I'm not saying Stuber's bad. You can get at me in the comments because we do like engagement. And if you want to sound stupid and get pwned by me on text, fine. Great, but Scott's about to fall over laughing here.
I just hadn't heard pwned in a very long time.
I actually I pulled it out because I saw a story about the state of Tennessee took some guy's custom license plate because it was 69 pwned you. And they said it was too immoral, or however you want to phrase it. All right, Brad, get me out of this conversation. Moment of suffering.
It was actually towards the end of the match. We had a free kick that Salovic ended up taking and just going over the bar with it. But it wasn't the free kick that bothered me. It was the fact that we took over a minute to set that up with time ticking down a goal. It's not the time to have a 4 or 5 man discussion on who's going to be taking the free kick and setting up for a minute to 90 seconds. Figure it out and take it quick because you need time's not on your side. You need clock. And I was screaming at the TV at that point, somebody kick this fucking ball.
I mean, do you take it quick there, or are you trying to make sure you get it absolutely perfect because it might be your last good chance?
The odds of you making it though aren't overly high. I get that it might be your last decent shot, but that corner we had at the end of the game was pretty good chance too. So to me, maximize the amount of opportunities you get as opposed to pushing all your chips in on one relatively low percentage opportunity.
Okay. I can see that. Mine was around 80, 82, somewhere in there. When I was going through the stages of grief, and I was like, actually, a draw is not bad. We all wanted a big win today, and I fucking hate Phil Neville, but point on the road, MLS, not too bad. We'll take it. And then they get that foul, and I did the same thing Scott was talking about earlier, where you're the dumber the foul, the more likely the ball is to go in the net. And I'm just motherfucker, something bad is going to happen here. So I guess it's 2, but that whole stretch was my biggest suffering. Scott, how about you?
My moment of suffering was Julio Cascante going out injured, and hope that he is back healthy soon and we're not in another center back injury crisis. And yes, that's terrible. But I also want to talk about how turf should not be an allowed surface. We should be playing this game on grass. It's in the fucking Pacific Northwest where it rains constantly. This idea that Portland can't have natural grass is absolutely fucking asinine. Get rid of turf. We don't need it.
I agree. I sort of understand Vancouver, but Portland's a fucking joke.
Yeah, like it's absolutely ridiculous to me that Portland doesn't play on natural grass. I kind of get it for Vancouver because they're domed or a partial dome.
Yeah, no,
Well,
that's
the dome, I think it opens up if they want. I think it actually does have like a roof that opens.
Okay, because I was thinking it was retractable, but I just had never seen it retract because that's also a thing of like it's retractable, but they never actually open it up. But yeah, no, like play the game on grass. It's better for the players. There's no, as far as I'm aware, there's no kind of like study or an interest that like turf is better in some way. Like play the fucking game on grass.
I mean, it's cheaper. That's about the only better way. Even when that big lawsuit for the women's team was filed about, unequal pay and a few other things, one of the big things was, hey, we train and play on turf, and it's not fucking safe. And it isn't, because you slide and you get, even like decent turf, you're going to get burned up, and it's not great.
The biggest problem you have if you want to play it up in the Northwest and, these other places that have plastic pitches in the U.S., I'm thinking of Atlanta here and Charlotte, is they all share one thing in common. They all play football in those stadiums. Portland has, I think Portland State plays there during the college season. Of course, up in Seattle, you've got the Seahawks. In Vancouver, the BC Lions, the CFL. And then down in Atlanta, Charlotte, it's the NFL teams. Same up in New England. So it's not so much a weather thing to me as it is the pitch is going to get pretty beat up. And I think we saw that in Toronto last year, where they do play on grass, but they also play CFL football. And you see it in Dallas late in the season when high school starts up, because a lot of high school games get played on that pitch in Dallas or Frisco. And it's beat up. It's not good soccer to watch. So I think that's a big concern across the board for both of them. And there's a reason that, I don't know if y'all know this, there is something in the contract in Chicago where the Fire can't play a home game within a certain amount of days of a Bears home game that's scheduled because of the pitch. Because they play on natural grass and they've got to make sure that the grass is set correctly for the Bears and not the Fire. So it's just something to take into consideration. It's hard to get around because of the multi-use facilities that we have here in North America.
Yeah, but I don't like that answer.
I get it. I just don't think it's a cost-cutting thing as much as it is a practicality thing.
Okay, but like Portland plays in like a fucking baseball stadium. Wasn't there grass there before?
Sure, but they didn't play football in there.
Sure.
Yeah, you have to remember that baseball players don't really move, so the grass doesn't really have any problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do they play football? Well, I guess you said Portland State. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of minor league stadiums that get converted into soccer stadiums in the USL and USL League One around the country. But it doesn't, like Scott just said, half the field, half the soccer pitch is actually across, and well, hell, in MLS too, because I just forgot about NYCFC. But half the soccer pitch goes across the infield too, which is dirt, right? So if you're only really eating up a little bit of the outfield, you're not messing with anything from a baseball perspective. So it just doesn't, the footing isn't as necessary as it will be from a play-to-play standpoint in American football. So
yeah, well,
and you have either a soccer match or an American football match or game with rain and terrible conditions, and then you try to play the next day or 2 days later on the same pitch. Like that's a bad combination.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to when they used to play like NFL games on like literally with the baseball field still out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oakland Coliseum, baby.
Yeah. That was definitely one of the
Davis.
ones that came to mind. I guess the other thing we have going this week is FCTO kicks off on Friday. Most of the roster is turned over. They scheduled this game and the next game at 5:30, and I think it was a mistake that they're just like too ashamed to correct.
Yeah, can I shit talk that for a second? Because 5:30 up northeast of town is the most fucking bullshit thing I've seen in a long time. Like, unless they're also going to put in happy hour pitcher prices, like what the fuck? Like nobody's getting, like anybody who works until 5 is not going to be able to get out there unless you already live up there. And for games that like have such a great communal feel and are really fun to go to, like I can't make it there and work till 5 on Friday, and I know that like basically nobody can, and it's absolute fucking bullshit. Like,
Yeah, I
start the
live
game
right
at 7:30. Like, it's fucking fine. Like,
I would like to
I,
understand the logic. Like, can somebody from the FO step up and tell me what the logic behind it is?
yeah,
Because you just hit the nail on the head for me, Scott. It's the communal aspect of those games. People actually attend our second team matches. We like going. It's fun. Austin FC, get the message here. We like going and we like having beers and spending money over there and food and whatever else.
people
I'm
show up
not going
early.
to
They
sit
spend
around
money.
after
They
the
bring their
match.
kids.
Like, I'm not going to sit around after the match and, continue to hang out at the pitch. Like, I'm going to leave at 7:30 now, as opposed to coming over a little early and having a pregame drink and whatever the case may be, because pregame's out of the question with a 5:30 kick.
like the people who should be maddest about this is the pitch itself, because they're missing
Yeah.
out on all that pre-match drinking revenue, and it's going to be a thing where like people who go out to the game, like they're either going to leave at 7, or they're going to view it as like, okay, we're going to go somewhere else now, and like kind of a thing, and like I don't know, it just doesn't make any logical sense. There's a reason why games don't start at 5:30 anywhere. Like, I can't think of another league where that happens.
Well, and I also think there's just fewer people are going to show up to the match, fundamentally. And it's not like I understand that FC2 matches are really not a revenue maker for the team, but we're one of the few clubs where you can find incremental dollars for your second team that other places don't find. So you should be maximizing that advantage. And listen, it's not a priority to Roto. Fine, understand, don't care. It's still fun for us to go, and you have people supporting it. It takes nothing off of you to play a match at 7:30 versus 5:30 as a club. You're not losing anything here that I can think of, unless you just don't want to pay the extra power bill.
Yeah, also, like, it's March. It's not going to be like freezing at like at night or something. Like, it just doesn't, there's just no logical reason why that's the case. Like, the high on Friday is 83. Like, it's not going to suddenly get down to like a cold weather game where nobody's going to want to go to. Like,
It's
going to be
arguably
warm. It's going to be
worse.
fine.
It's arguably, because they play on a plastic pitch, going to be worse to play at 5:30 than it will be 7:30, because that heat will hold for the first half. It doesn't really have a chance to cool down. So I actually feel terrible for the players here having to play that early too.
Yeah, I mean, I literally live, like, if I really, really wanted to, I could walk to the pitch, and I'm not going to, like, I will have to leave early to make it there for the game, which I'm probably going to do, but we'll see. And yeah, like you said, like, the pitch, they have folks will show up. You have 3 or 4 kids or whatever, and, they come in big groups of, like, small children. Like, multiple families will meet up. They all eat dinner there. They all grab, drinks there, alcoholic or otherwise. It's a ton of money for the pitch. The only thing I could think of is if this was like a league-wide thing and they're trying to schedule for like Boston so it's not freezing, but it's not like Next Pro doesn't schedule multiple days and multiple times every goddamn weekend anyways.
Why would it even be a league-wide thing? So people could watch on Apple TV? You have 5 people watching a stream for the most part for second team games? Like, it's not like folks are going outside of our sicko fan base. There's not that many people who even are going outside of their way to watch these matches.
No, and it's
Right.
also, you guys talked about, like, communal aspect. This is also a brand opportunity for the fucking club. Everybody's excited again this season. It's the first game. Go throw on it like an event and give away, like, I don't know, some dumb kitschy fucking gift to anybody who shows up. Like, push it through your little sales rep folks. Like, it's not, I'm tired of trying to teach this fucking club basic commerce.
Yeah.
And it's really goddamn annoying.
Yeah.
Like, any person with even like a remote idea of how any of this shit works could go, well, that's the dumbest goddamn thing I've ever heard about scheduling this at 5:30.
And
Like,
maybe
hey,
there's
let's
the
schedule
argument.
matches for when people can attend. Like, it's, again, like, you just ask basic questions, and the basic questions don't have good answers. Like, it's absolutely asinine to me. And it would make sense if like they were gonna have like a second game later and like make it like a double header, but like they're not doing that either. Like,
Yeah. Maybe there's an argument that, hey, smaller kids are having trouble making an 8 o'clock kickoff. Fine, don't kick off at 8. Kick off at 7. Kick off at 6:30. One of those two, and you buy people time to get up there. But it doesn't have to be 5:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, like 6:30 makes a lot of sense, because if you're if you're closer by, you can leave work and get there at 5:30, and you still have an hour before kickoff to hang out beforehand. And for those of us who live further away, like 6:30 I can do. I just have to leave at 5 to have like enough time there. But like, or like close to 5. But like, yeah, like just make it 6:30. You end at 8:30. Like that's a normal kid bedtime. Like I don't know. It feels like it's set up for a doubleheader and there's not a second game. And that actually would be kind of a cool thing as like an academy thing of like one of the like older academy games was like at 5:30 and then you had like FC2 at 7:30. Like that would be a cool night kind of a thing, but that's not what they're doing.
Yeah, like a
I actually wish we would do the doubleheader once a year with like when we have an afternoon game, like in a couple of weeks against Galaxy, right? Or whoever we play in the afternoon, or San Diego, where we have an early afternoon match at Q2, and then you play an FC2 match after it at home. Kind of like what St. Louis is doing when we go there, where first team matches first, and then if you want to stick around and
challenge.
If you want to stick around and play the second team match, like St. Louis, if you want to go to a fun away day and see both teams play in the same day and still catch a flight home that night, that's actually very doable because there's a late night direct home from St. Louis. But
also, again, from an economic perspective, like if you you don't need that many people to stay at Q2 and buy another drink or buy another round of concessions and make a bunch of money. Like,
yeah. How many people listening to this podcast would actually leave Q2 if FC2 was going to play a match after we played? Like, stick around for an hour, you have a couple of drinks.
Listening to this, like none of them?
Yeah. Like, that's the thing is you stick around, you have an hour between matches, you stick around, hang out, have a drink or two, and then you watch another match and watch FC2 play, and it's great. And you can move around and maybe sit in some places in the stadium that you normally don't sit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would also be such a fun experience of being able to have like that kind of like varsity JV like attitude.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be an everyday thing. Just once a year would be a blast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing with the 5:30 games too, is like your first one is the best way for you to establish, hey, this is a fun thing to do. Come to more games. Why the fuck is that one at 5? That one and the next one are at 5:30. The rest are at normal times. Like,
yeah, it's dumb. But I'm going to try to make it out there. I'm just going to have to find a way to leave work a little early on Friday.
Are you going to Waffle House after the game?
That is the plan. Yes.
Okay.
It has been quite a while since I have been to the house. It's going to cost me $20 an egg. I don't care.
I would say either way, not just for wins.
Yeah. This is one of those. I need a waffle.
Yeah, what you should start doing is bringing your own eggs and just see if they'll charge you like a corkage fee for your own eggs. All right, that seems like a suitably ridiculous thing for us to sign off on, unless you guys have something else you want to hit on.
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, on behalf of Scott and Brad and Seth, who is somewhere on a plane, I think, should be back soon. Thank you for suffering with us. Bye.
Promise here for Austin Jarrett Stroud. It's Diego for goodness! He has written his name into Austin folklore. They just won't go away. Oh, he hits the upright again. That's impossible.
The Bears' season's going to end on a double doink.
Altidore squares it. Dempsey's missed it. Donovan has it. From hope, there is glory.